Hey guys, Sean from Top 5 Fit, where training fits your life. Wanted to talk a little bit today about some questions I've been fielding over the past month or so concerning training volume. Now, for just about every sport out there, that term, that phrase is going to mean something different. But ultimately, it all kind of comes down to how much you should be or shouldn't be climbing or descending in terms of the amount of work you're doing in your training program. Now, depending upon what your goals are, depending upon your current physical status, and I say that because it's March and I live in Ohio, and there's a lot of people right now not feeling too good because of the up and down conditions in the weather. Mold and whatnot in the air is a very real thing. You can obviously hear it in my voice. I've been dealing with a cough for about the past 60 plus days. But the fact of the matter is, what you can actually accomplish and get done over a 30-day period when you're supposed to be training is important. It matters how many miles you run, how many miles you ride, how much you're actually climbing your bench, your squat, or your deadlift by, when it comes in terms of poundage or kilograms. So the idea is progress and trying to improve your overall output and performance, but not hurting yourself. So you're kind of walking that fine line of making sure you're training at just enough of an intensity level that you're improving, but not so much that you're breaking down tissue to the point of no return. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Um, right away, I hear a lot of, is 5% okay? Is 10% okay? Is 15% okay? People like to have very defined numbers and ranges to work within. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very safe way to go. But at the same time, it can also trip you up. If you're increasing your bench by 10 pounds every single time you go after it because so-and-so program said so, that's not taking into consideration other factors like what your recovery is actually like. Is it taking you 48 hours to bounce back from that particular workout? Is it taking you 24? Is it taking you 72? These are all things that ultimately, in my opinion, because that's all this really is my opinion, those are things that ultimately dictate how far and how fast you should be adding volume to your program. I'll use myself as an example. Over the past 60 days or so, while dealing with this cough, I've been trying to increase my mileage on foot outside. Now, many of you know, many of you don't know, I run in Vibram, so it is basically a barefoot approach. So over the past 60 days, things like temperature, how much salt is actually on the road, what the texture of the earth is on the trail. Sometimes it's mud, sometimes it's frozen. So these variables ultimately dictate whether or not I can add a mile or two or I need to take away, because some of those workouts I bounce back from pretty quickly, some of them I don't. So what you should consider when you're trying to actually increase your game a little bit is, instead of just sticking to the straight paper program, which again is not a bad thing, but you want to introduce more of an element of listening to yourself and listening to your body. I have a tendency to stick with weights or stick with mileages until they become damn comfortable, until they're almost recovery more than training. It's a bit of a baseline that I like to develop over the years. It's a certain amount of work that can always be expected no matter what. So even if I'm not feeling good, I know I can cover X amount of miles and X amount of intensity per body part on a given day. Those are things that are tried and true practices, and they happen over and over and over again. Confidence is developed, thus I can perform those things whenever, wherever, in any circumstance. Now, once that baseline is kind of established, that's when we actually start adding difficulty to the picture. So you'll see, instead of a 10, 15, 20 mile week, I'll start pushing for maybe a 25, 20, or even a 30. All depending again on how the tissue's bouncing back. Because while I'm making all of those changes or trying to increase my overall volume, I have to make changes to things like my diet. I have to improve my recovery game at home. In the beginning, I may only spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes stretching in front of a movie or listening to, a video or something. Whereas once I start hitting the 25, 30 mile a week, or, I'm actually lifting 5 days a week on top of that mileage, that stretching may need to pick up to a full hour. I may actually start needing to incorporate some kind of massage therapy or, cold therapy or whatever modality is out there to ultimately speed up your recovery. So to kind of recap and wrap things up, I'm not going to just tell you to go by a straight percentage or a straight, chart of what you should and shouldn't be doing, rather than put more of an ear to yourself and kind of watch how you're actually recovering from each and every given workout. That kind of information it's going to be more of a guide for you to move forward than just being disappointed because you don't necessarily hit the mark or hit a number on something that's laid out or printed out in front of you. Thanks again for watching, listening to me babble. These are things that just kind of pop up in my head from time to time, and I'm trying to do a lot better about getting them on film and making sure I'm sharing the information with you guys. Because at the end of the day, it is all about training that fits your life. It's if in a perfect world, we would all be Olympians and we'd all be able to run the perfect schedule. But the reality is, some of us are parents, some of us have businesses that are blossoming, some of us have just straight outside responsibilities that make it very difficult to stay on that perfect, pretty program. So these are some things that you can kind of follow if your life is just as hectic as mine, and hopefully still get you to the same goals that you ultimately set in the beginning. Again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you liked what you saw in the video, hit the like button, and look for us again. We'll be back. Thanks.